Hello. So this is a review for Module 2, like a practice test. It's just 3 problems, but it'll help you with a few problems on our Module 2 test. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. It says, what are the solutions to the system of equations composed of the line y equals negative 1/3 x minus 2 and the equation represented in the graph? So basically what they're saying is that they have already graphed this parabola, and now we need to graph this line and see where the two touch. And our answer is going to be where the two touch. So to see where we would graph this line, we are going to make an X and a Y chart, right? Our T chart with X and Y values. And then usually you start with like 0, 1, -1, just to get an idea of where the line will go. So we will start with 0. And so we take this equation, y equals negative 1/3, and then we put 0 in for the x, and then minus 2. Negative 1/3 times 0 is 0, so we get y equals 0 minus 2, so y would equal negative 2. And then we graph that. So the x value tells us how to move left or right, and the y value tells us how far up or down to go. So I'm going to go left to right 0, and then down negative 2, and that's going to be part of my line. Now that's not going to be one of the solutions because that point does not touch our graph that's already there. So that's part of the line, but not part of the answers, because the answers are going to be where it touches the parabola. All right, and then I'm going to change my color. So then the next one we would normally choose would be the 1, but in a fraction, I want to choose a number that's going to cancel out with the bottom of the fraction, the denominator. So I'm going to use 3. So then I do the whole process again. Y equals negative 1/3 times 3 minus 2. And then I usually like to turn that into a fraction so that I can see that the 3's would cancel, leaving me with negative 1/1, which is y equals negative 1 minus 2. Negative 1 minus 1, we ask ourselves, are those the same signs or different signs? They are the same signs. So we're going to add our numbers together. 1 plus 2 is 3. And we're going to keep the negative sign, because it's saying that you have negative 1 and you go negative 2 more. So negative 3 altogether. So then this means I'm going to go to the right 3, and then I'm going to go negative 3, which will put us right there. Super cool if you could use a straight edge every time you connect dots that you know are going to be in a line. And we do that. And so then our answer is going to be this point here and this point here. So where our green line touches our parabola. And so this one is lovely because that's this one right here. So the answer is going to be 3, negative 3. And then this point right here is not as easy to figure out. So I'll estimate on your test, it is a perfect, it hits on a point that is easy to give the coordinates for. But for this one, I'm going to say that we're a little over negative 2. So I'll go negative 2.2 maybe. And then we're coming down negative 1. And so that would be your answer for that one. Always pause and try to do things on your own as you go. Pause if you need to catch up on the note taking, rewind. Like these are all of the beauties of doing things on video, is that you have the power to pause me, rewind it, etc. Number 2, for which value of f of x is there only one solution? You can also consider this to just be y, because it's asking you for which of these numbers on y is there only one solution. Now, since this is a multiple choice test, you can actually just go and look at your choices. So when y equals negative 6, that's right here. So any of these, y equals negative 6, anywhere on that line, And we see that there's one solution, two solutions. So that cannot be the answer because it says, for which value of y is there only one solution? So then I can do the same thing at 0. So how about when y is 0? How many solutions are there when y is 0? Well, there's none. Maybe some imaginary solutions, but as far as we can see, there are none. So it can't be that one. C is for -2. So when y equals -2, right? These are my y numbers. When y equals -2, how many solutions do we have? 1. It touches the line in 1 point. So that is our answer. So I'll fill that in. Do I need to check the -4? Yes, we should always check every answer in case we also think that one's right, then we would know we have a problem somewhere. So always check, but -4 gives us 2 answers, so we know that is not correct. That is all you had to do for number 2. I actually think almost everybody got that one right, so that was lovely. So now we're on number 3. Number 3 is like numbers, I think it's 9 and 14 on your test. And those two are hard, like there's a lot of steps in this. So I encourage you to write down every part that I write down so that when you get stuck, you have places to look in your notes, okay? So let's start with making sure we know what standard form is. So standard form is ax plus by plus c equals 0, okay? And we use standard form so that we can find what a equals, what b equals, and what c equals. Now, a is lovely because it's right here, and I apologize. This is ax squared. Please take a second to fix that. Ax squared. Holy cow, I have all kinds of mistakes. If I knew how to edit, I would change up this whole video, but I do not. So let's try again. I actually do know how to edit. I just can't do it at school. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. If somebody else knows how to edit and wants to fix this all for me, I would gladly give you a Jolly Rancher. All right. So our a is the coefficient next to the x squared. And if our a were negative, like -2 or -4, you would keep that negative sign as well. Then our b is going to be the coefficient of the x and the sign that goes with it. So if it's plus 3bx, you've got a positive 3. But if it's minus 2x, now you've got -2 as your b that would go down here. So be careful of your signs. And then your plus c, again, you have to include your sign because if it's a minus c, the minus goes with it. So we are going to use substitution method. So I'm going to write that right here so that you have that word in case you need it later. So substitution method, you should have practiced this with Delta Math. If you have not done the Delta Math substitution lesson, I strongly encourage you to do that. But substitution means you're telling me that y equals x minus 5. So I can take x minus 5 and plug it in for that y up there, which is going to give me a new equation where I have x minus 5, that's that y, equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. So now I love this because we only have an x. So now I can just solve for x. That's the goal. But to solve for x, it would be best if I could start with in standard form. So that means I need to get one of my sides equal to 0. To be equal to 0, I need to do the opposite. So I have a positive x, so I'm going to subtract x. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And I want to do it next to my like terms. So I'm not going to put it under the x squared because those are not like terms, but I am going to put it under the minus 2x because those are like terms. And then I did that because x minus x equals 0. But I still have a 5, so I have minus 5, so I'm going to do plus 5 to both sides. And now I can just combine like terms. So my minus 5 plus 5 is also going to give me 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus x. This has an invisible 1 in front of it. So you think, do we have the same signs or different signs? We have the same signs. They're both negatives. So -2, -1. We're going to add them and keep the sign. So the sign's going to stay a negative. 2 plus 1 is 3x. Now we have -3 plus 5. Are those same signs or different signs? They are different signs. We have a negative and a positive. So different signs, we have to choose the sign. Well, 5 is bigger than 3, so I'm going to make it a positive. And then 5 minus 3 is 2. From here, we need to go find our a, b, and c. So the a would be right next to the x squared. There's nothing there. So what will that be? It will be a 1. Sometimes people will say it's a 0 because there's nothing there. But if it was a 0, 0 times x squared is 0, so it wouldn't even be written. So if we're taking the time to write x squared, that means we at least have 1. Then our b is going to be all of this, right? So -3. And then our c will be this. So including the positive sign, right? It's going to be a positive 2. Once you have your a, b, and c, now we need to put it into the quadratic formula. So I think it's really important that you know your quadratic formula, that you highlight it in your book somewhere, like that you have it written perfectly, okay? I, of course, will sing it for you because I'm just so fun like that. So here we go. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And that is your quadratic formula. So you could label it quadratic formula, do whatever you need. And now it's just a plug and chug problem. We're going to plug these numbers into the equation and then chug through the math. And so I will rewrite it. So we've got minus b. Well, we've got x equals minus, and then I have to put in b. b is a -3. This is the first mistake people make. They'll write minus b and forget that there are now actually 2 negative signs, because you've got the negative sign from the formula and the negative sign from the b. And then we'll make that a positive in a second. So we've got plus or minus the square root of -3 squared. And then here's the problem. If you put the squared there and plug it into your calculator, it will come out wrong. It will give you -9, and the answer is not -9. So if you're going to plug it into a calculator, you need to use your parentheses, or you just need to think through it and check for signs every chance you get. And we should note that -3 times -3 will be a positive 9. All right, then we have -4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2. All over, and then 2 times 1. So at this point, all we have done is plugged in our a, b, and c into the quadratic formula. And now we go through and we do the math. So we get x equals a negative times a negative is a positive. I've also taught you that they like jump into each other. So we get +3 plus or minus the square root. I will do this off to the side a little bit, but -3 times -3, which is what x squared is, right, is going to be +9. So we get 9 minus, then you have to do 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. The biggest mistake I saw on the test were parts in here with the 4ac. If you have only one negative sign, it'll stay a negative. But if you have a second one, then that will make this an addition sign instead of a negative sign. So if you're doing a test of reflection to correct, double check that. How many negative signs do you have in here? All of that over 2 times 1 would be 2. And then I just keep doing math. So x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 1 over 2. And then I'm going to write out one more step that I did not write out when I did this in class, but I feel like it might help some people. So the square root of 1 is 1. So then I have x equals 3 plus or minus 1 over 2. We know how to do 3 plus 1. We know how to do 3 minus 1. So from here, we need to write the problem twice. So I'm going to write it once over here and once over here. So we're going to get 3 plus 1 over 2. And then we have to do 3 minus 1 over 2. 3 plus 1 is 4 over 2. 4 over 2 is 2. So that means I get x equals 2, or, and then we do this second problem. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. So, or x equals 1. But we're supposed to graph these points on our graph, and I only have the x. So all of that work, and I only have x's. I don't even know what the y is. So when I try to write my answer in coordinates, in ordered pairs, I can't even do the y. So I might as well just, give up, right? That's our best option. Or, hear me out, plug in x to find y. And what we're going to plug it into is one of our original equations. And the top equation looks way more complicated than the bottom equation. So I'm going to use the bottom equation. And so I'll write it again, y equals x minus 5. So then I try it with a 2, y equals 2 minus 5. Do I have same signs or different signs? They are different signs. I have a positive 2 and a negative 5. So different signs, we're going to subtract and choose. 5 minus 2 is 3. And then I'm going to choose the negative sign because 5, the absolute value of 5, is bigger than 2. So I'm going to keep the negative sign. I'm going to choose the negative sign. So when x is 2, y is negative 3. And then we can graph that. So I'm going to go when x is 2, so to the right 2, y is negative 3. And that is one of my points. And then we do it again. I'm going to use that same equation, y equals x minus 5. So y equals 1 minus 5. Same signs or different signs? Different signs. We have a negative 5 and a positive 1. So we're going to go 5 minus 1 equals 4. And it'll be a negative because the absolute value of 5 is bigger than 1. So we choose the sign with the bigger number, the bigger absolute value. All right, so then when x is 1, y is negative 4. And then I come over and I graph that. So when x is 1, y is negative 4. And then you do not have to connect these. Yeah, they can just stay right like that. Because we actually don't know which of these points, like those, hit the parabola and the line. So we would need to wait and graph more. But that's all you need for the test. Okay? That's all you need for the test. If you're doing it like in class, ask me to check that your A, B, and C are correct before you go through all of this work. When you get something ugly under the discriminant and you can't figure out how it works, come and ask me. I'll help you find your mistake so that you can go forward. Okay? And since I said the word discriminant, let's just talk about that real fast. So discriminant is just that part that goes under the square root sign. So it is the b squared minus 4ac. And so when you figure that out, right? Whatever that answer is inside the square root. If under the square root is positive, then you have two real solutions. Just like we did in that last problem, we had the positive 2 and the positive 1 were our two solutions for x because our discriminant was positive. But if the discriminant, which is the part under the square root, right? Those two things are the same. I'm talking about the same thing. If the discriminant is 0, then you have one real solution. Because plus 0 minus 0, you're going to end up with just one answer. The last option is if the discriminant is negative, what is that going to do to your solutions? Then there are two imaginary solutions. And then my apologies, but they use the word complex on the test. I'm glad you get to see both in case it's different on SATs or somewhere else. But yeah, so if it's negative under here, like if you get a negative 27, it's going to be two imaginary solutions. Whereas if you get a positive 27, you're going to have two real solutions, even though they're not going to be easy. Okay? All right, good luck. If you need anything, come talk to me.